So, hello and welcome back. We've got a second edition of Democracy Talk from the World Forum for Democracy in Strasbourg, France. I'm Patrick Chalmers and I am delighted to be talking to Adam Cronkright and Simon Peck from Democracy in Practice. Democracy in Practice. Adam, what do you guys do?
So Democracy in Practice is a small nonprofit, and we focus on democratic experimentation, innovation, and capacity building. And so we were invited to come here to the World Forum to present an initiative that we've had going on in Bolivia now 3 years, which is teaming up with students to reinvent student government, make it more inclusive, make it more representative, more participative than traditional forms of student government that you find in schools around the world.
And so, I have a 14-year-old daughter, for example. She has just been voted onto the student government for her year. She's been voted on. Tell me exactly what is it that you guys do that is different from the way she was chosen on student government?
Well, one of the things that you see when you have elections in schools is that they tend to advantage more ambitious, more popular, more charismatic students, and disadvantage students that are shyer and less popular. And so one thing that we propose to these schools is that they do away with elections and that they randomly select their representatives in lotteries. And so that gives everyone an equal chance to participate directly in the student government and develop civic and leadership skills. Right? So that's one big difference. We also encourage rotation, so shorter terms, you get more students involved throughout the year. There's no more president or vice president. They work together in horizontal teams. And so experiment with a lot of different ways to get more students involved, to give students equal opportunities to be involved, and then to give a real rich experience once they're involved.
That's a wonderful answer. I can now tell her to watch this tape and she'll get an explanation that I was trying to give her over the breakfast table, and she'll have it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. But tell me, you've been at it for 3 years, so what sort of impacts have you found so far?
Yes, we've been reflecting on this quite a bit, and we'd say there's been a lot of tangible impacts and also impacts in the ways people think about democracy. And so on the ground, we've seen a lot of changes in, for example, the participation. So a lot more students are interested in participating, and because, as Adam mentioned, we're now rotating roles, many more people are able to participate in the government. There's also been a lot of tangible impacts that we spoke about, for example, creating the first ever school library, first ever set of student cards, a lot of skill development. People are now much better at working in teams, solving problems, communicating. And also, I think, in terms of the way people think about democracy, we've done a structured research study on that, and it's been really impressive to see people thinking much more critically about democracy now. So people express that, for example, random selection can have a wide-ranging set of benefits over elections that previously they weren't aware of, and a lot of students are now advocating for using these practices not only in their school on a continued basis, but also recommending them to be used at other schools as well. So it's that critical thinking about democracy and having people see outside the election box, so to speak, and see that there's other ways of doing things that's been really impressive.
Interesting. So we're getting more people involved, we're getting a far broader choice of students involved, you're getting interest and real engagement from the students. These are quite radical ideas. You know, we're surrounded here in Strasbourg by sort of democracy theorists, and a lot of democracy theorists will talk about elections and, you know, how that's the pinnacle of democracy. But you guys are quite radical, and it is radical, even if it's only in a school context. So, I mean, where are we going with this? Where might this sort of thinking take us, do you think?
Well, for us, it's about experimentation, right? So you have a model of student government that isn't working. It isn't working from an educational standpoint. It isn't working from a leadership standpoint. And so through creative experimentation, we're developing better approaches together with the students. And when we look around, we see a lot of democratic institutions outside of schools. So you have unions, civil society organizations, our elected governments, that people are increasingly dissatisfied with, that it doesn't seem to be working as well as we would like it to. And we think that it's through creative experimentation that we're going to find better approaches, and that's what needs to be happening. For our part with Democracy in Practice, we're already in some serious talks with a union in Bolivia about helping them reinvent their internal union governance. And we're hoping we start to see more of this type of experimentation, be it with these practices or other practices, you know, but just just break open the playbook and let's start trying out new things. And we're bound to come out with something that works better than the systems we have that we're so frustrated with.
Okay, and I'm going to throw in one last question here. It's sort of related to what you just said, but our previous speaker, Carson, there, she was talking about how conventional politics and sort of village meetings or town meetings, for example, give a platform for the incensed and the articulate. So people who are angry and people who can speak well. And my sense of what you're talking about is that you're getting around that problem. But have you got findings specifically from the classrooms, or are the quieter, less angry people getting a chance to speak? Is that what you're finding?
So I can speak from the research perspective, and so one major thing that people have brought up as an advantage of random selection is the fact that everybody has an equal opportunity to be selected. And a lot of people have said that it's, like you said, it's not only the popular people anymore, the ones with the best set of social skills that are being able to participate in the student government. So that's been a huge shift, and that's been recognized as a major advantage by the students. I think Adam can share more about what he's seen on the ground.
Well, on the ground, towards the end of their term, we tend to ask student governments who are finishing their term, student government members, right? We tend to ask them, had we had normal elections and you had to become a candidate, form a party, run a campaign, would you have been a candidate? And anecdotally, about 3/4 of the students who are finishing their term of office say no. No, they wouldn't have anything to do with that. Either for fear of being in front of the whole school saying vote for me, or that they were new in the school and they wouldn't have even had enough friends to form a party with. And so certainly over half, if not a majority of the students that finished their term of office wouldn't have been there had it been with elections. And you see a whole range of social skills, social skill development that comes into this environment in the student governments. And so, and then the other element of it, you have students that aren't just the most angry or the most articulate that make it into the student government, but that doesn't solve the problem necessarily of equalizing participation. Then you need dynamics in the student government meetings that make it, because you have very articulate, very charismatic students that enter the lotteries too and get picked as well, right? And that would have been candidates. And so sometimes you'll have the situation where that person makes it into the student government and they're all ready and set to dominate meetings, to dominate talk time, to try and really push the group in certain directions. And so finding ways to make sure that doesn't happen in the meetings is another important part of it, not just the random selection.
Well, this is outrageous. On the behalf of 500 million Europeans, I say thank you for coming over, because we are sitting in Europe, we have racism, we have democratic systems which are in crisis, that's no exaggeration, and we need some good news, and what you guys are doing sounds fascinating, frankly. So thank you for coming. Thank you for talking
Thanks
to
for
Democracy Talk today, and this is Patrick Chalmers signing off for Democracy Talk.